This is Dr. Toby Moma, your host on Health and Wellness with Dr. Toby. Thank you once again for tuning in for our show today. It's an honor to have you on the show. Don't touch that dial. We believe God is going to impact your life positively for His glory. I have on the show with me Dr. Shreya Saxena. What an honor to have Dr. Shreya on the show today. She's an Indian-born, Russian-trained American immigrant and public health physician, and she's sharing her perspectives on life in India and her public health initiatives currently. She's currently a public health master's student at the Louisiana State University in Shreveport, and she's talking a bit today about vaccines and immunization. Tell us a bit about why does America still have a measles epidemic? A country like America, I mean Sri Lanka, a lot of other countries have eliminated measles, but America is still talking about measles. I think the last statistics I saw, they said they've had more than 3,000 cases in 20, and I could be wrong, in 2019, which is more than they've ever had
since 2004 or
since
1994.
Right. So give us a little insight into that. So how many cases and what is the reason for the upsurge?
It's really sad that in a community like in United States, this is happening. But yes, it is happening. That is for real. Uh, because of vaccination deficit, this is happening, and part of the problem is that because of globalization, virtually everyone is going everywhere. People from other parts of the world are coming who have not been vaccinated or do not or are under immunized, in fact, or people who are in United States, they might not get vaccinated because of personal issues or religious exemptions. So those pockets of people who are not immunized are actually carrying this disease and spreading it to other people, and it is sad. Like you said, there have been over 950 cases of measles in 2019 in America, which have been reported, uh, and
And this is more than since 1994.
1904, yeah. In 2000, actually, America was declared free of measles. If this continues, America will be that status of measles being eliminated from United States will be taken away. There will be an outbreak of measles, and I was reading who says that measles and rubella, both of them have a cyclical trend when they come in together. So if rubella also comes in along with measles, it's going to be sad, especially for pregnant women. Yes.
So tell us why. So you mentioned religious reasons. What my colleagues in public health tell me is there are some pockets of individuals who don't want to get vaccinated,
Yes.
and then they become a source
Yes.
for that infection. What would you, as a public health physician, do in that kind of case when you have a person who may be a potential spread for the infection?
There is so this is it started in 1998 when a physician from UK published an article in the magazine, in the journal called Lancet, and that was about measles vaccine, like MMR vaccines, is related to autism. Now, this created a feeling of insecurity amongst the parents that, okay, we do not want the kids to be immunized, and that's sad. That is sad because that article was retracted from the magazine in 2011, and there is a bunch of researches and bunch of studies done all across the globe to prove this wrong, and there was no supportive evidence found in support of that. So that led to a lot of parents not getting their kids vaccinated with MMR vaccine, and that is how this is coming into our society too. As a public health candidate, I would say that spreading awareness amongst the families who are against vaccination, that okay, this is completely safe, and there have been incidents in our healthcare history that smallpox or maybe polio from certain nations have been eliminated through proper, strict, successful immunization regime which certain countries have followed. So this is possible. I mean, this is possible. It is pretty much it's a natural response, natural immune response which vaccines create in our body. It's nothing synthetic or it doesn't have any side effect. That's what we believe so far, and we should stick to it so that America doesn't faces another outbreak of measles.
Well, the evidence is clear. I mean, before 1956, when Sabin discovered the polio vaccine,
Exactly.
a lot of young men and women had their legs in paralysis.
Exactly.
But you don't see that anywhere today. Why? Because of the success of the Sabin and Salk polio vaccine from
Vaccines.
the University of Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
So what we are saying is that whatever the negatives of vaccines, whether it's fever, whether it's pain, whatever, some people say seizures, whatever the negatives, it's so minuscule compared to the great advantage of saving lives. You know, talk to us also about other vaccines. I mean, we're currently going through the influenza season.
Yes.
What's your recommendation to women? What's your recommendation to people? Is it for everybody? Is it only for some sick people? I mean, what's your recommendation for the pneumonia vaccine? Should everybody get it? In general, what do you recommend when a patient goes to her doctor and they tell her you need a vaccine? What do you recommend they should do?
Flu season is on, so everyone should get flu vaccine, especially elderly people, especially pregnant women. They should get flu shot.
But everybody should get it,
Everyone should
from
get it.
cradle to grave.
Yes.
There's no
Yes.
discrimination.
For pneumonia vaccine, I think there are certain, if you are elderly and if you have, say, congestive heart failure or some chronic illnesses, pneumonia vaccine is indicated for those kind of individuals. Not
Smoking,
smoking.
sarcoidosis, cancer, leukemia, sickle cell,
Morbidity.
COPD. Those are times we start talking
Yes.
about,
So
ear,
pneumococcus, yeah, pneumococcus as well.
inner ear transplant. There's quite a few cases when you do that.
Yes.
Hmm.
And for the one thing I would say here is preconception. I would recommend that women who are planning pregnancy should get a preconception titer checked for MMR and other vaccination, other titers like varicella and zosters. So in case somebody is under immunized or doesn't have exact titers for MMR, they can be vaccinated before conceiving. That is going to protect the fetus and the well-being of the mother all throughout pregnancy. So I highly recommend that.
I want you to be, so MMR means,
Mumps, measles, rubella
so when
vaccine.
you get the MMR vaccine, you are
Protection.
protecting the individual from
Three.
mumps, measles,
Measles and
rubella.
rubella.
Why are we talking about a pregnant woman getting rubella? What are the complications if a pregnant woman gets rubella? What's the big deal if a pregnant woman gets rubella? Why can't a pregnant woman get rubella and just have a normal baby?
So I had a conference in Jackson State University about Delta Sophi, and we talked about maternal health and the consequences of contracting rubella during first trimester of pregnancy. If that happens, there is a good chance that the fetus is born with cataract, hearing, like hearing loss, like complete deafness, and some heart issues like congenital heart deformities. So now that is going to compromise the life of the fetus absolutely towards a negative way, and we don't want that to happen. So congenital rubella syndrome is something very serious, and like I said, who says that measles and rubella, they come in a cyclical pattern and they come together. So if we talk about measles, so measles causes a lot of miscarriages in pregnant women if they have contracted it during first and second trimester of pregnancy. So this is serious.
We
And
call it the blueberry muffin, baby.
yes,
Okay. But 60% of American women have unplanned pregnancies. I don't know if you're familiar with that statistic, but 60% of pregnancies in America are unplanned. They didn't plan to have a child, they just suddenly found out that they were pregnant. And they're mostly among our adolescent and, youthful
young,
children, youthful
yes.
females. So the problem we have is they should get preconception counseling. They should get their rubella antibodies checked to know if they're immune. And if they're not, then they should get the vaccine. But because they don't even plan on becoming pregnant, that conversation never comes up. So I think it's important for the doctors watching to take the onus, to take the initiative and do those things so that you don't just think she's not going to have a baby. You just start preparing her once she's in her reproductive years to start getting ready for that.
Exactly.
You know.
You're right about that. So it has to be, it is the responsibility of the primary care doctor or the OBGYN to counsel the patients on the importance of getting just like we do counseling on prenatal vitamins,
Hmm.
prenatal vaccination should be considered and given importance to, I think.
Now, this is what my question is: why was it only in America that this myth from the British author took root? Why didn't people in India stop getting vaccinated? Why didn't people in Africa stop getting MMR vaccines? Why didn't people in Europe stop getting it? Why was it America that the British author's opinion had a groundswell in approval or in impact? What was, I mean, I'm just thinking there must be something. I mean, he was British.
He
He
was
was actually
British.
banned from the
Yeah, so he was
from the General Medical Council. He
the
was debarred. His
yeah,
license was
was
withdrawn.
taken off.
And the Lancet, which is an international journal, was 2 years or 3 years later had to come out and apologize for ever publishing his paper because
Correct.
it was a fallacy. It was full of a lot of loopholes and there was no facts behind it. And this man now, I heard he's moved to the U.S. And he's working with some, companies,
Anti-vaccine
anti-vaccine
vaccine
movements.
protests.
But my question is, why did his opinion have such a groundswell in America? Was there something in America that he had that we didn't know about?
I think, Dr. Moma, it's because American community is well informed, well aware of what is happening around, uh, as compared to other communities or other countries. So American population is literate. It's awareness. So the awareness in American population came in a little faster than it did in other countries. So I think that's how people started being cautious about.
Attention.
Yeah, they start paying
Right.
attention.
So, but for those of you watching, the anti-vaccine movement is a hoax. We as physicians have seen the benefit of vaccines. We have seen cancer prevented. We've seen death prevented. We've seen, I get my flu vaccine every year. So I'm trying to educate patients, educate family members. Your benefit outweighs whatever risks you may feel those vaccines. And so there are some restrictions. Obviously, you don't get a live vaccine if you're immunosuppressed. You don't get,
Immunosuppressed,
the,
live vaccines in
you know,
pregnancy too.
like Zostavax. You don't
Yes.
get some other live vaccines. I think the other live vaccine is typhoid, or another one that
Varicella is also
varicella is
Zoster,
live.
MMR is vaccine, but only exception is yellow fever vaccine. If we are traveling to countries where yellow fever is endemic, no matter what
You
your
have
immune
to
state,
get it.
yes,
Right.
because the consequences are bad. And there was this interesting case that happened in United States about tetanus, neonatal tetanus. So there was a kid who was diagnosed with neonatal tetanus because their parents were anti-vaccine family, and they spent $1.3 million on the care of that kid. And finally, that kid was revived. And the interesting part of the story was that after the kid was revived back and he was fine, the parents were counseled about getting the booster vaccine for tetanus, and they said no again.
What country was that?
It is in the United
What
States.
state?
Oh, I'm not sure about
Wow. Was that recent?
that. It was in 2016, yes.
Oh, wow. Never heard of that.
And that $1.3 million could have actually been
But that was spent by the American healthcare
yes,
system. Wow, wow, wow.
to taking care of
Let's
that
talk
kid.
about another initiative that you're interested in. We'll come back to pregnant women later on. Smoking cessation. I've heard that 25% of Americans smoke cigarettes. And I heard it's even higher in India, maybe about the same 25%. What is the whole attraction? I mean, tell us a bit about the the painful, the side effects, the complications of smoking. But why is it still so popular, even though we all see the billboards that say Surgeon General warns you that smoking is dangerous to your health?
I think it's like a health habit. People get it. People just develop it, and especially in India, cigarettes are not as common as chewing dry tobacco, and that makes like a majority of Indians smoking dry tobacco. And there are certain festivals in India. It might be interesting for you to know where elderly people smoke pot legally. So,
Marijuana.
marijuana, yeah. So that makes Indian numbers go very high. And there are, like you said, there are very, very bad, lethal outcomes of smoking, and it is well established that smoking causes a lot of chronic diseases, lung problems, and comorbidities, but people are not giving up on it. So
Why is it so popular in America? Just the habit? You think that's just the
Yeah, just
reason?
a habit. Yeah, I think.
What would you tell somebody who's a smoker? What would you tell him listening to us today? What would be your advice to a man who's smoked for 50 years and
Y-
he's asking you as a physician, what should I do?
You can always switch to patches and gums to cut down on smoking, but don't switch to vaping. Vaping is not studied yet. Vaping, I think, how do you
That's
pronounce it?
called
Vaping.
vaping, right?
Vaping is not studied well yet, and the recent public health challenges are coming up with vaping because there have been good number of deaths with acute lung diseases which are happening with vaping, and people switching from smoking, like considering vaping as safe and going on to vaping is not. I don't think it is too early to do that, and I don't think it's a good
Well,
idea
the
because
CDC just released the warning about vaping
yes,
because of the vaping induced lung injury.
lung
So the
injuries,
CDC came out strongly and said vaping is not
not
safe
safe.
and is not recommended. And I think they're going to put a restriction on companies that sell vaping products.
India banned e-cigarettes, so
Oh,
something like that
they
should
ban
be.
e-cigarettes, but they allow regular cigarettes. Tell me a bit about neonatal syphilis. I don't know if you heard this story, but Louisiana had a high
How are you?
explosion
Hmm.
of neonatal syphilis. Did you hear about that?
Yes, I was. Yeah, I read it about that in the papers and everything,
Right.
and that is worse because in Louisiana alone, especially in the African American community, the cases of syphilis were very high. I think it was third largest in the whole of United States. So it was concerning. It was definitely concerning, and the problem is the problem syphilis is treatable. It can be handled, but the problem is the part where you get diagnosed because of financial barriers or other sort of barriers, people are not getting diagnosed as early as they should be, and that is, like you said, neonatal syphilis. I think if people can get treated for syphilis before we don't reach.
But just to educate the public, neonatal syphilis is when a mother has syphilis and she passes it on to the child. And I think if you look at the statistics in 2017, Louisiana was number one. I mean, it's rare to have a baby come down with syphilis. I think Louisiana had almost 90 something cases.
Cases.
Unprecedented. So the CDC made up, it's a big deal. They're doing an investigation to see exactly what is
What is
happening.
happening?
But syphilis is a sexually transmitted disease. If the mother is not tested while she's pregnant, she doesn't know she has syphilis and she now goes to a hospital to
Delivers a
deliver.
baby.
By then, it's too late
Too
to
late.
prevent the transmission. So, the whole idea of this is to say you've got to have prenatal counseling. You don't just show up on the day of your delivery and say, I have twins, I want to have a baby. No, you have to see the doctor regularly. Every 3 months till you're 21, 24 weeks, then every month till you're 36 weeks, then almost every day
Be
once you hit 36 weeks. And what we do at those events, we retest you for syphilis, for gonorrhea, for chlamydia, to make sure there's no danger to
into
the
the
baby.
baby.
We do a pap smear, and we'll make sure that there's no, like you talked about, rubella and other things, ABO incompatibility, and all
Incompatibilities.
that. Tell us a bit. What else did you talk about at your prenatal counseling at the Jackson State University? You said you did a session
Yeah,
with.
so it was basically about prenatal counseling the women about
So what else should they
vaccination.
know about prenatal counseling?
There are two vaccines. One is flu, and the other is Tdap. If the pregnant woman has not got a booster in last 5 to 10 years, so two vaccines are absolutely necessary during pregnancy, in the first trimester of pregnancy. So we talked a lot about the schedule which the pregnant women should follow. Apart from that, live vaccines are contraindicated in pregnancy, during pregnancy, anytime.
And those are what are the live vaccines?
Live vaccines are like attenuated or the weakened viruses, actual viruses, which are injected
So
in the
like
body.
oral polio is a live vaccine.
Oral polio is the live vaccines.
Zostavax.
Zoster, varicella, MMR, yellow fever, everything is live. Most of the viral vaccines are live. So those are not recommended because you don't want to jeopardize the fetal health because the immune system of the fetus is not developed enough to fight even those weakened particles, weakened
But
viruses.
are Tdap and influenza, are they safe on the
Yes.
baby if you give it to the mom during pregnancy?
Yes.
Okay.
Because you don't because we don't want to the baby to have pertussis, whooping cough, and tetanus after they are born, because they have like really bad consequences. So and influenza too. I mean these two vaccines are absolutely necessary. Live vaccines are contraindicated, but there are certain exceptions, and there are three exceptions to this is hepatitis vaccine. If we are living in a community where hepatitis B has an outbreak, then no matter what, pregnant women are supposed to take hepatitis B vaccine. So I mean, we have to know what all diseases are endemic or have outbreak in our community to decide. And I think the OBGYN already knows that these are the vaccines at this time we have to give it to them. And the other one is polio. If we, it's not in the United States, but in some countries where polio is endemic, polio vaccine is recommended. So
So talking about that, let's talk about the. I don't know if you've seen the hepatitis A
has
warning.
outbreak. Yes,
They said there's a hepatitis A
outbreak
outbreak
in Louisiana.
currently in Louisiana, and it tends to happen when there's a homeless population, right?
Hmm.
So give us a, what is the, can you get vaccinated against it? What is the cause of the hepatitis A outbreak? Why is it so prevalent in parts of Louisiana?
I would say that hepatitis A is little contagious because it spreads through contaminated water and food. So we have to watch for the source of drinking water in our community, especially in Winsboro. And I've seen a lot of patients in Winsboro Rayville area which are coming up with hepatitis A. There's like a real hepatitis A outbreak. I think the figure is around 115 so far in Louisiana alone, and that's not
So this is
good.
just from drinking unclean water or eating unclean
Eating,
food.
yes, yes. And so there has to be something local that is happening which is spreading.
So what should somebody living in that area do about the food? If he goes to a restaurant, I mean, what can you do to
Uh,
safeguard yourself from contacting hepatitis A or
Basically, well cooked food and drinking water which is clean enough, not from any tap. I would say those are the two immediate precautions which anyone can take, like warm food and well washed and well cooked food is something we can always take note of before we eat anything, and especially when we know that hepatitis A is out there. So
so should somebody with hepatitis A get the hepatitis A and B vaccine?
yeah, yeah, they
Okay.
can. They
Well, they
can, but
don't
not.
know that, so I was trying to educate them.
Yes, not during the infection. Once the infection has already stepped in, vaccines don't work
But as soon
very
as they
well.
come out of the infection, they
Yes.
should get. And if you get the vaccine, it prevents you from potentially, getting a recurrence,
Hmm.
possibly, and even a worse outcome. So we encourage people to get the hepatitis A vaccine. Is water pollution a big problem in India?
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, but hepatitis A, B, C, are they big problems in India?
Hepatitis A is
Because of the water pollution.
water pollution, and there was a thing I just remember briefly reading about it, that from coconut water, the fresh coconut water, people were getting hepatitis A. Drinking at
Wow.
any stall or any street side thing, fresh juices, those were giving hepatitis A to the students who were living in that community, and that was really fascinating to me. Okay, one juice corner can give so many people hepatitis A,
Mm.
so we have to really watch out what we drink and eat, and people these
So I
days
don't know
should
if
do
you
that.
know this, but in Louisiana and I think in Mississippi, the HPV, human papillomavirus, and the meningococcal are optional vaccines. So that means a child doesn't have to get it before they go to college or go to high school most of the time. I mean, it's different in different places, but I think in Mississippi it's optional. Can you explain to those mothers watching why their 9-year-old daughter who's never had sex needs a HPV vaccine?
HPV is one vaccine which can not only prevent you from getting papilloma virus, but it can also prevent you from getting cervical cancer. Because papilloma virus actually makes manipulates the cells in the cervix to uh, get cervical cancer. So if If there is one vaccine I can say can prevent cancer, it's going to be HPV. So HPV is important. It's absolutely important. You might not see the need for it in a 9-year-old daughter, but if you think far ahead for your children to have their safe sexual life and safe parenthood and safe married life, I think I personally believe if it is my daughter, I will definitely recommend HPV. The meningococcal, I was with a doctor in Shreveport, and there was an 11-year-old kid, girl, who was admitted to Christus with meningitis. Now, meningitis is the inflammation of the meninges in the brain. But imagine an infection not in the throat, not in the neck, not in the lungs, but in the brain. It is very severe. And especially young kids who are living in a grouped facility are prone to getting meningitis. And it was a myth, I would say, that it is only localized to developing country and communities with poor socioeconomic conditions, but now it is everywhere. When I saw that case in Shreveport, I was like, okay, it happens here. It is
I
happening.
hope she survived.
Yes, she did.
Okay, good. This is Dr. Toby Moma. We're sharing with you things that you need to know about your health, how to stay healthy, how to prevent disease. It's more important to stay healthy than to be healed. I'll see you next time. Dr. Toby Moma saying Jesus is Lord. God bless you.